Welcome to my Get Ready With Me. This is my daily morning routine. I wake up with the sunrise of a time zone 4 hours behind mine. I brush my teeth, I hop in the shower. Not this shower. It's like 6 months ago, early November, and I'm in the shared bathroom of my college dorm. And as I groggily reach for the soap, I bump my head on a shelf. Sorta hard. I get lightheaded for a second. Not very, just a little bit, but enough that I start thinking, should I be concerned? Could I be concussed? I start feeling more lightheaded and slightly nauseous. How hard did I hit my head? The heat and steam of the shower are indistinguishable from sweat, and I am drenched in it. I didn't hit it that hard, did I? I feel dizzy, I can't breathe, I can barely stand. There is something very, very wrong. Kneeling on the floor of the shower, I turn off the water and grab my towel. The world feels blurry, my balance is off, and I lack the coordination to wrap the towel around me very tight, so I just sort of hold it loosely around my waist as I run through the hall back to my room. I feel like a monster. I feel like a sweaty, bulging mound of flesh. I get back to my bed, I lie down, my sheets are soaking wet, because I was in the shower, to be clear, not for any other reason. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I'm in some horrifying place between reality and nothingness. I think I'm dying. So, the plot twist here, and this is some Inception level shit, so prepare yourself, is that I did not have a concussion, I had a panic attack. I've had 3 panic attacks at that level of severity in the past few months. Twice it was because I hit my head, the third was from another thing that can make you lightheaded. I've had other moments of panic or anxiety, but those 3 were at another level in that, I felt like I was dying. Each time I have a moment of fear that I have a concussion or some other physical problem, I try to convince myself that that's not the case and that I'm overreacting, and then I feel okay for a few seconds before I start truly overreacting and everything comes crumbling down. I told some friends that I was working on a video about my panic attacks, and they seem to think people might be worried about me, so I just want to reassure you that you don't need to be worried. I didn't go to therapy, but I did do some Googling, and I learned this really helpful breathing exercise that I'll teach you now. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Into, out, 2. In, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. In 5th grade, I had a reaction to the swine flu vaccine. It was one of those nasal sprays. The doctor shot it up my nose, and then as I was walking out to the parking lot, I got super lightheaded, my vision got blurry, I felt like I was gonna collapse, so my mom rushed me back inside, they propped my feet up on a chair, they gave me a juice box, which made it all worth it, I'll do anything for Capri Sun, and then they called an ambulance and took me to the hospital. I felt fine after like 15 minutes, but I had to stay there for like 2 hours, and then I went home. In retrospect, and we've got a second plot twist coming up here, even Shyamalan couldn't come up with this one, I suspect this was a panic attack. Because prior to this, I had seen an anti-vax hoax on the news about some girl who got the swine flu vaccine and started talking backwards and could only walk backwards, and scariest of all, she started speaking with an Australian accent, so this really freaked my 5th grade self out, and the anti-vaxxers won this one because I'm pretty sure I didn't get a flu shot for a couple years after that. I don't know about shots, but nasal spray will fuck you up. Nasal spray will turn you gay. It happened to me. It will happen to your children. In the months after this, I started getting really lightheaded at any mention of needles, to the point where in a 6th grade health class, I almost passed out, and they took me to the nurse's office in a wheelchair, and then I got a blood test and an ultrasound. Again, they didn't find anything. It's this self-reflexive fear, where the memory of having panic attacks itself triggers panic. I was running over the summer, like a true self-care icon, and I stopped in part because I was worried that I would get out of breath and then panic. And it was difficult to discount that fear, because if I was scared about this happening, it made it more likely to happen, since the problem was the fear. I no longer needed to actually be scared for my physical health, I just needed to be scared about having a panic attack. The therapist who I lied about not going to a few minutes ago for the sake of relatable content recommended me this book called Don't Panic. You don't even need to read the book, the title gives you all the advice you need. It opens with a description of the physical symptoms of panic attacks, and I needed a few sittings to get through it because just reading it made me short of breath. And speaking of being short of breath, we interrupt this program with some breaking news. We are in the midst of a global pandemic called coronavirus. This is I assume the first you're hearing of it. I started thinking of making this video back in the before days, and as coronavirus spread, the topic began to feel increasingly relevant, because I've heard from many people who are starting to have some version of this same experience. I keep seeing people describe an experience in which they feel slightly sick, and then they worry that they have coronavirus, so they get anxious, which makes them short of breath, and then they worry that their shortness of breath is because of coronavirus. We want so desperately to have a compelling pandemic narrative. We can do the xenophobic narrative where we blame it all on China, or we can do the narrative where anyone who violates social distancing gets cancelled, rather than directing outrage at the systems of misinformation that have led people to violate public health guidelines, or at the failures of our government in communicating accurate information. We instead direct it at Brandon, who went to see his girlfriend on her birthday like some kind of Satan worshipper, and we want him punished. When the bad men like Brandon violate social distancing, we want them to get sick. That'll show them, that'll teach them a lesson. The villains get what they deserve. And then there are the ways we try to make sense of things at an individual level. You feel a little sick, so it must be coronavirus because that's just what the world is up to these days. That's what would feel the most narratively cohesive, even though you can clearly still get sick from the things people used to get sick from. But you do a Google search for coronavirus and whatever symptom you have, and inevitably something comes up because coronavirus is the only thing people talk about. My legs are sore, that could be coronavirus. I have a rash on my arm, probably coronavirus. I have a sudden craving for bananas, coronavirus. Unfortunately, the virus does not follow our narrative rules. Our bodies just won't listen to good storytelling. It's amazing how quickly things changed as the pandemic spread. How quickly plans were canceled. How quickly my college friends stopped giving a shit about their finals. How quickly we developed new social etiquette to stay away from people. How quickly conservative politicians were suddenly on board with some government welfare. How quickly the possibilities for the future multiplied, leaving us with terrifying uncertainty. Panic, whether it's because of a global pandemic or because I bumped my head in the shower, which are equally distressing events, reveals the fragility of the meaning we've constructed. I told my roommate that my panic attacks feel like I'm dying, and she was like, "How would you know? You've literally never died before." Here are the top 5 times I feel like I'm dying. Number 1, when I get to the bottom of the Cheez-It box. Number 2, when the guy I'm crushing on smiles at me. Oh my god, I literally had a panic attack. Number 3, when I see an adorable dog but can't pet it without violating social distancing. Reaching out, touching. Number 4, when my phone battery drops to 10%. This feels exactly like heart failure. Number 5, when a YouTube commenter tells me I'm going bald. The panic attacks are worse than any of those, obviously. What I mean when I say that it feels like I'm dying is that it feels like time stops. It feels like I'm in this self-contained moment external to the rest of my life. I've exited reality into a nightmarish sensory experience. It's like watching Yo Gabba Gabba. And in the moment of panic, my whole world feels so completely distant. The narrative of my life feels irrelevant. I think that I'm dying, but I don't really care because the things that I care about don't feel present anymore. This is a meditation to help you find your center and connect with your inner self. Find a comfortable position, sitting or lying down, and take a long, comfortable breath in. Now exhale and release all tension, all worry, all uncertainty. Take another deep breath in, and when you exhale, empty yourself of all emotions and all thoughts. Now breathe in, and realize that you have emptied yourself of everything now, and there is nothing left of you. There is no deeper you, except for the blood and guts and bones. You are empty. You are nothing. Existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said,
"After I took the mescaline, I started seeing crabs around me all the time."
Sartre had an intense fear of crustaceans, particularly crabs and lobsters, that started in childhood and got worse into adulthood. After a bad drug trip, he started hallucinating crabs following him around.
They would follow me in the streets, into class. I got used to them. I would wake up in the morning and say, "Good morning, my little ones. How did you sleep?"
This fear made it into a lot of Sartre's writing, most notably in his play The Condemned of Altona, which imagines 30th century crab people looking back in time at us in judgment. In his debut novel Nausea, which I found extremely relatable because I also have stomach aches sometimes, Sartre writes,
"When I was 8 years old and used to play in the Luxembourg Gardens, there was a man who came and sat in a sentry box against the iron fence. He did not speak, but from time to time stretched out his leg and looked at his foot fearfully. We had a horrible fear of him because we sensed he was alone. One day he smiled at Robert, holding out his arms to him from a distance. Robert almost fainted. It wasn't this creature's poverty-stricken look which frightened us, nor the tumor he had on his neck that rubbed against the edge of his collar, but we felt he was shaping thoughts of crab or lobster in his head, and that terrified us. The fact that one could conjure thoughts of lobsters on the sentry box, on our hoops, on the bushes."
You know, sometimes you see someone and you just know that they're thinking about lobsters. I've been trying to figure out what it is that's scary about this man imagining crustaceans, and I don't think it's really the crustaceans themselves. I think it's that if this man is conjuring crustaceans and they feel real to him, then what does that mean about the things that feel real to us? If these fake crabs feel real, what does it mean for the reality of everything else? The scariest thing about panic attacks is that the panic isn't confined to the attack. Sartre's crabs aren't confined to his mescaline trip. Once reality is disrupted, the narratives that we once accepted as stable and fixed no longer can be, which is frightening, particularly when it feels random, unpredictable, and out of our control. But I wonder if there's some possibility in it. I wanted to put a crab in the bathtub next to me, but it's hard to acquire crustaceans in quarantine. During my panic attacks, I become detached from the meaning that I've constructed, and from the meaning that's been constructed for me. The world is reduced to arbitrary sensory input. I am an empty shell, and all that's left is me in fetal position on the floor of the shower. So what does that mean for me once I stand back up?